Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Roberto Sablon. I am the sales manager with Hayward for Latin America and the Caribbean, and I'm going to be conducting this webinar today on lights and water features. The main purpose today is obviously to show you our broad spectrum of LED lights. We are not going to be taking a look today at incandescent because obviously that is a technology that is going away and fading away. Everything is switching over to LEDs, and that is our focus on this presentation today. We are, just for those that haven't logged in before, who we are as Hayward. The company was founded in 1925 by Irving Hayward. That's where the name comes from. And we have 10 manufacturing and distribution centers around the world. For those that haven't logged in before to the webinars, last week we had webinars on variable speed, filtration, and gas heating. Yesterday we had a webinar about heat pumps. And today, obviously, we're focusing on lighting and water features. Tomorrow, we have a webinar on sanitization, and that includes salt chlorine generators and UV and ozone. And then next week, we are having a webinar on automation and automatic pool cleaners. So please remember that each of these webinars is an individual registration. So register for each of these sessions that you want to attend. On the webinars for this week, all of them were sent on the same email, so you can register to all of them just on that individual email. But remember, each specific registration to each of the webinars. During today's webinars, if you have any questions, please write it down on the question section of this platform, and we are going to answer them at the end. Just a quick overview of what we have on low voltage lighting. We offer everything from transformers to the lights to the controllers as well. And here we can see a breakdown on the models available. Universal ColorLogic is LED light, but it is color LED light. And then when we look at the Universal CrystaLogic, that is LED, but that is LED white only. So for those applications where the customer doesn't need color or doesn't want color, they just want the efficiency of LED and they want the brightness of LED, but they just want a white only LED. So remember, CrystaLogic is white, ColorLogic, obviously color. And then we also have the models of ColorLogic 320 and CrystaLogic 320. These are lights that install in 1.5-inch pipe or 2-inch pipe. We're going to see how we can adapt it to both pipe sizes. And then we have one light that we call ColorLogic 80. This is a 1/2-inch light that is obviously much smaller and provides accent lighting. And this one is only available as a color option. It is not available as a white only. So keep that in mind, please. Here we see some of the benefits of using our ColorLogic and CrystaLogic LED lighting. It is the only light in the market that is certified by UL to fit any niche. So the benefit with that is that most of the pools, if a pool was built 10, 20 years ago, you don't know exactly what kind of niche they have in there. But all of our lights, all of our pool and spa lights are able to fit into competitor niches. So that is a big advantage. No metal parts. What that means is a added safety. By not having any metal in any exposed metal in our pool lights, then it doesn't require any grounding or any bonding. So the wire, the cable that comes out of the lights is only 2 wires, okay, for the low voltage. No need to ground it or to bond it. And it is completely safe when installed with a low voltage transformer. Here we see some of the added benefits. It is 200% brighter than the competition. The other benefit is obviously with LED is longer lasting, over 20,000 hours of working use. Also, the colors are more vibrant, and we're going to see that on some of the pictures. And then we also have color shows and so on that automatically change from one color to another. And obviously, another big benefit of LED lighting is energy savings because it uses less energy than standard incandescent. With our lighting, it also reduces installation cost because remember, since we do not require a grounding or bonding wire, then that is less time and it is also less money spent on the installation. And here we can see the specs on our ColorLogic, and this also applies to the CrystaLogic. As we said already, 200% brighter than the competitors. We have 10 fixed colors and 7 color shows. We also have an adjustable face ring, as we can see here, and that face ring actually comes in 2 colors. Standard in the box, you get a gray and you get a white, as we can see here on this picture. And then we also have other face rings available, including black, beige, and dark gray. The other good feature that it has is that the lens, it is not a glass lens, it is actually a plastic lens. So it is shatterproof. It is not like the standard glass lenses that many times get damaged either in installation or even while it's in use because people hit it or something like that and it breaks. With this being a plastic lens, we have a longer life on our lenses, on our lights. And remember that it fits any niche. That's why it is called universal. You can have a niche from the competitors. It can be metal or it can be plastic, and you can still use our lights in those niches. Something to keep in mind is the angle of coverage. We have a horizontal 135 degrees. What that means is that we have a wide lens that is able to avoid most of the shadowing that many times we get with conventional lighting. So by having a wider lens, we can get more light coverage, and at the same time, our vertical projection is only 65 degrees. And that is good because remember, in vertical, we don't want the light to shoot out of the pool. We want all of the light to be focused in the water and focused in our pool. So that's why horizontally, we have a wider lens, a wider axis or a wider lens, and then vertically is only 65 degrees because we want all of that light, all of those lumens to be focused on our pool. Similar with our spa lights, horizontally is 135 degrees, and then vertically it is only 45. And why less than on the pool lights? Because the spas tend to be shallower, so we don't need it to be as deep as you will get on a pool, and that's why it is only 45 degrees vertically. Also keep in mind that all of our lights are low voltage, and we recommend using 14 volts. So 14 volts, most of the transformers, you get a line that is 12, 13, and 14 coming out of a transformer. Make sure that you use the 14 volts line because that is going to help us avoid voltage droppage. And we are going to see that as we get into installation. Here we can see coverage on a pool using a ColorLogic versus a competitor's light. We can see how our wider angle of, remember, 135 degrees, we get better light coverage, and then we also get better projection. We can see that this pool, actually, the finish is not that nice. We can see that it's a little bit patchy here and there because it has some designs on the bottom. But we can see that with our light, we illuminate all the way to the back wall. With the competitor's light, it doesn't make it, halfway past the half of the pool. So by having a wider angle lens and have a better projection, we can see with a pool light how we can illuminate pretty well this big pool. And now, when it comes to energy savings, remember a pool light, our Universal ColorLogic pool light uses only 70 watts. Many times we compare that with a incandescent light that it will be using 300 watts. So obviously we get quite a bit of energy savings by switching from incandescent to LED. Similar situation with the spa light. The spa light is 35 watts. A standard incandescent spa light uses 100 watts. And then we have the ColorLogic 320. This is the one that installs in 1.5-inch pipe, and that one is a 23 watt light. And then we have the ColorLogic 80 that installs in 1/2-inch pipe, and that one is only 4.5 watts. And similar story with our CrystaLogic. Remember, CrystaLogic is the white LED. We have these lights are equivalent to either 100, 300, or 500 of a standard incandescent watts. The 500 watt equivalent only uses 70 watts, so we can see a huge savings just by switching from incandescent to LED. The 300 watt equivalent uses 48 watts, and then the spa light, instead of being using 100 watts as standard incandescent, it only uses 16. Now, the good thing with this light is that if you are working on a project that was already built years ago and the lighting wasn't spec'd the right way, and the pool has a deficiency when it comes to good lighting, instead of going with a 300 watt light, now you can upgrade it to a 500 watt equivalent light that uses only 70 watts, and you're going to get better coverage in that pool. And here we see the lumens. Right now we have been talking about watts and the energy consumption. Now we go into lumens. Lumens is what really matters when we are speccing a project, especially a new project, because the lumens is what is going to tell us the actual amount of light that this fixture gives us. Remember the CrystaLogic white LED that is equivalent to 500 watts? It gives us 4,900 lumens. The CrystaLogic that is equivalent to 300 watts, it gives us 3,300 lumens. And then the ColorLogic pool light gives us 2,300 lumens. The spa light gives us 700. And then the spa white only light is going to give us 1,100 lumens. Normally, as a rule of thumb, this is not universal, but as a rule of thumb, the recommendation is 9 lumens per square foot of surface area, or 97 lumens per square meter, depending on however you measure your pools. This is very important to always check with the customer, because obviously what might be bright for you, it is not necessarily bright for them. So if a customer wants their pool to look like the sun and to be extremely bright, then probably you want to up those lumens recommendations. Instead of doing 9 lumens, you want to do 15 lumens, for example. And then also, when you have a darker pool finish, you need to double your lumens. Because remember, the darker the pool finish, it is basically going to absorb the light. It is not going to reflect as much. And you need to compensate by increasing the amount of lumens that you're using per square foot. So remember, this is a rule of thumb, but it is not universal. Darker pool finishes require more lumens. And then also always check, please, the user expectations, the customer expectations. Some people just want things really bright, really shiny, and then you always have to increase the amount of lumens per square foot. But if we have a standard pool size, let's say a 15 by 30, which is many times a common pool size here in the States. So 15 by 30 is 450 square foot. We just multiply the 15 by 30 and it gives us the total square footage that we're trying to illuminate on the surface. And then we multiply that, let's use the rule of 9 lumens per square foot. So 450 times 9, it gives us around 4,000. So we have a couple of options there. If we are going to do color and we require about 4,000 lumens, we can do 2 of the pool lights, or depending on the size of the pool, and we're going to see this a little bit earlier, we can do a combination of the ColorLogic pool light, for example, on the deep end, and then we can do a ColorLogic 320 on the shallow end. So we can mix a couple of different sizes of light. This way we are going to get better illumination, and at the same time we are going to meet our formula for 9 lumens per square foot. Now jumping over into the ColorLogic 320 that I just mentioned, remember that the ColorLogic 320 is our light that installs in 1.5-inch pipe. And on a project, we can mix and match different types of lights, because if all of them are ColorLogic, all of them are going to be synchronized. So we can have a large pool light on the deep end of the pool, and then we can have, for example, a ColorLogic 320 1.5 inch light on the shallow end or on the spa. And all of them are going to be synchronized as long as they are installed on the same wiring supply, on the same power supply. Here we can see the lumens on the CrystaLogic 320, which, remember, that is the white only light. And then we can see on the ColorLogic 320 on the color lights. All of these lumens are based in white light. And we can see how the coverage, the angle of coverage on this ColorLogic 320 is 160 degrees all the way around. So this also helps avoid shadowing, any type of shadowing that we might get on the pool. Recommendation is the same, obviously 9 lumens per square foot or 97 lumens per square meter, depending on how you measure your pools. And here we see a project. This is obviously an irregular pool, so it's always a bit challenging to illuminate irregular pools, because we have multiple turns all around the pool that we obviously want to avoid shadowing as much as possible. So here, for example, we are using universal ColorLogics on the deep ends. We can see one here, one here. Then we are using a ColorLogic 320 to illuminate the steps area and the sun shelf. And then we are using the ColorLogic 80, remember the 1/2 inch lights, to illuminate the landscape area, because those lights can also be used outside of the water. So now we can illuminate the landscape all around the pools to match our pool. And then we're using a ColorLogic 320 here on the spa. So remember, since all of these are ColorLogics and all of them are installed to the same power supply, all of them are going to be synchronized. So we don't have to be worrying about synchronization with using different types of lights in all of these projects. And remember, in this case, our house is on this side, here on the bottom of this picture. So we always want illumination to be away from the house, not in front. That's why on this picture, we see all of the lighting in this section of the pool, and we don't want to put the lighting here on the top of the pool, because then that is going to be illuminating against the house, and it is not going to be pleasant, because you're going to have all of that lighting basically at the people's eyes when they are sitting around the pool on this side of the house. So always keep that in mind when recommending illumination, to try and avoid any type of shadowing, and mix and match different types of lights in order to get the effect that you want. Here we see another example of how we use our ColorLogic line in order to illuminate landscapes. We can use the ColorLogic 320 1.5 inch light into our planters, as we can see here. And then we can also use the ColorLogic 80 1/2 inch light into water features. We can see here how with that 1/2 inch light, we are illuminating all of this waterfall. So it creates a nicer effect. You can actually see the waterfall at night with illumination. If you don't put any lighting here, basically you won't be able to see all of the details in these water features. Just as a safety note, remember that we are working with high voltage and low voltage. So make sure that every time you're going to do any type of service on the lights, that you have the required tools, and if not, please hire an electrician, and don't mess around with it if you're not familiar on how to work with electricity. As I mentioned earlier, we have 10 fixed colors and 7 color shows. Here we can see the colors. We have 3 options of blues. We have a couple of shades of green. We also have a white. We have a couple of shades of red, a couple of shades of purple, and then we have our color shows that automatically change from one color to the other. Keep that in mind, because when we are comparing our lights to competitors' lights with less color options, then the homeowner doesn't have the same amount of colors in order to choose from as they will do with our lights. Another benefit that we have with our lights is the omnidirect mode. What that omnidirect means is if you install our lights with automation, with Hayward Omni Automation, now instead of having 10 fixed colors, now you get 20 fixed colors. So you unlock another 10 color options, and we can see the color options here on the right hand side. These are warmer colors that we normally don't have with the standard color charts. So now we get into the warm whites, the yellows, the aqua teals, and so on. And this also gives the customer more possibility to customize however they want to see their pool. And remember, this omnidirect mode. It is only once you install our lights with our automation, with our Omni automation. Once you install the lights with the automation, remember that next week we're going to be reviewing automation, so I recommend that you tune in for that. Once you install the lights with automation, then you also get the possibility to dim the lights, because if the customer, for whatever reason, wants it in some areas to be dimmer than the others, then you can do that with this. And on top of that, the customer, by using automation, is able to select the color that they want directly without having to turn on and off to skip through the colors. Another recommendation when we are implementing our lighting on a new project is to see the light spacing and the lighting reach. Remember how we saw on that picture initially when we were comparing the lights to our competitors, how their light doesn't reach as far as ours does? Well, here we have the specs on how far normally our light reaches with a light surface. So we can see with the ColorLogic or the CrystaLogic pools, we can go as far as 14 feet in depth. Then also with the spot, we can do about 7 to 9. Same with the ColorLogic 320, about 5 to 7 feet in depth. And then with the ColorLogic 80, obviously this is the half an inch light, so we can go a couple of feet in depth. Something else to keep in mind and to be able to offer your customers is the lighting our controller. The good thing with this controller is that customer doesn't require automation now in order to select exactly what color they want. If they don't have the controller and they want to switch from example, from blue to green, you have to turn it on and off a few times in order for it to skip through the different colors. So with this controller, now they don't have to remember that light sequence. They just select the color that they want, and I'm going to show you how all of these buttons are going to work, but they just select the color that they want, and the lights are going to automatically go to whatever color they are selecting here on the screen. So it makes a usage of the LED lights and selecting the colors a lot easier. Not only the fixed colors, but now they also have access here to the color shows. Here we go more in depth into the controller. Remember that we have 10 fixed colors and 7 shows. So all of those options, we are going to be selecting it here on the controller. The desired colors are here on the color wheel. And as we turn this color wheel, this LED on the top is actually going to change according to whatever color we are selecting. Once we select the color that we want and we see it here on the display, we just push in this button and that is going to lock in the color, and it's going to synchronize all of the lights to whatever color we are selecting. So it makes it a lot easier to work with the lights, and it's a more pleasant experience for the customer, for the homeowner. And then to turn off the lights, we just press in this knob, this center button, we press it in for 3 seconds, and that is going to shut off all of our lights. Another option, another good feature that we have with this controller is that now we don't require a timer, a mechanical timer in order to turn on and off the lights. If the customer wants to turn on the lights, they select the color that they want, and then they say, okay, I want my lights to turn off automatically in 3 hours, then you can do that here with the controller directly. All you do is select the color that you want. Once that is locked in, customer comes here and presses this clock button. Once we press that in, then we turn the knob, and by turning the knob, each of the lights that turn on is going to represent 1 hour. So if the customer wants the lights to turn off automatically in 3 hours, they just turn 1, 2, 3, 3 of these lights, press enter, and that is going to save your programming. The controller is going to flash, showing you that the programming has been saved, and 3 hours later, the lights are going to turn off automatically. So that is a good feature for them in order to not having to go outside at the end and turn off all of the lights. Then this same feature can also be, you can have this repeat every 24 hours. So every day now the lights are not only going to turn off, but they are also going to turn on. So we use the same programming that I described already. You press the clock, you select the amount of hours that you want, and then you press enter. But by pressing enter, then you're going to press enter for 3 seconds. Since you have pressed enter for 3 seconds, that tells the controller that you want to repeat that cycle every day. So every 24 hours, the lights are going to turn on and off automatically. So this is something that the homeowner can do by themselves. They can program the lights however they want. And just keep in mind that in order to have the lights repeat that cycle every day, that programming has to be done at the time of day when they want the lights to turn on daily. So keep that in mind. Most of the time they will do it themselves. They go to their house at whatever, at 7 p.m. and they want the lights from 7 to 10. So at 7 p.m. you go here, press here, select 3 lights, press enter, leave enter press for 3 seconds, and that's it. Every day the lights are going to turn on at 7 and turn off at 10. Another good feature that we have with the controller is synchronizing. This button with the 2 arrows is our synchronization button. If we have a pool with multiple lights and we have a power failure or power issue and some of the lights get out of sync, then that is not a problem. We just come to the controller, press this button for 3 seconds, and that is going to send a sync command to all of the lights, and all of them are going to be synchronized. So it makes it a lot easier, obviously, to get our lights back on the same color. Then if we want to cancel the programming that we have done, all we do is press these 2 buttons, press them together for 3 seconds at the same time, and that is going to cancel or erase the last programming that we did. And then if we want the controller to erase everything, all of the programming that the customer has done or that anyone has done, we just press the 2 left buttons together at the same time, and that is going to erase all of the programming. So it is going to be a factory reset, and then they can just start programming once again. Synchronization. Our lights are self-synchronizing, so they synchronize every time you turn them on and off. If for any reason one of the lights are out of sync, all we have to do is turn it off and then power back on between 11 and 14 seconds. So we turn it off, we just count about 11 to 14 seconds, and then we turn it back on. That is going to be a synchronizing, that is going to turn our lights all into the same mode, and all of them are going to be synchronized once again. Now we're going to take a look at some of the installation and some of the installation recommendations that we offer. If you have a customer that is building a new pool, they want to use the pool size light, now instead of having to use the standard niche, which we know it is big and bulky, now we can use this low profile niche that is going to be suited for our ColorLogic pool lights. Good thing with this niche, it is totally plastic, so it doesn't require any grounding or any bonding, because remember, our pool lights don't require grounding or bonding either. It is corrosion resistant, and the good thing is that when it comes time to install, we do not require a rebar box in order to support the standard deep niche. Now, We are going to be saving a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of more work in order to do this. And at the same time, that this low profile niche is going to help us avoid the weak points that many times the standard niches provide. The standard niches are so big and so bulky that they're always a weak point in the structure. With this low profile niche, we're basically just going to attach it directly to our rebar cage without having to do anything special. We can see here that the depth is only about 2¾ inches, and then it has an elbow, obviously, in order to get our wiring going back into the junction box or the transformer. So this is an easier way to install pool-size lights, and it is a safer way because remember, it doesn't require any grounding or bonding, and at the same time, it saves time and money. Here we can see the recommendation of the niches. We normally recommend as a minimum to install the niche 2½ inches below the water line. And the light, the lens should be a minimum of 4 inches below the water line. This is minimum. If you want to go a little bit deeper than that, then that is fine, and that is perfectly acceptable. We just don't want the light to be right at the top of the water line, because obviously then our lumens and our light dissipation is going to get out of the pool, and we want to focus all of our lighting obviously into the water of the pool. And here we can see some of the installation options for ColorLogic lights. Remember, we can install it on a Hayward niche, or it can be a niche from another supplier as well. Let it be plastic or metal. Now, when it comes to the wiring, remember, all of these lights are going to always be low voltage. This also guarantees a safer installation. But we are going to come into our transformer with 120 volts, or in some cases, depending on the market, we are also coming into the transformer with 230. But always coming out of the transformer, we recommend using the 14-volt line. The 14 volt is going to help us avoid any kind of voltage drop, and at the same time, it is going to guarantee that our light is going to be the brightest it can be. Here we can see that we need to use a snubber or a capacitor and this is going to be installed on the line of the transformer. It is necessary only when using automation. So if you're not going to use automation, you don't need to necessarily use this capacitor. And here we can see how we can install our ColorLogic light controller. So we go from the breaker box or the sub panel. We are going to feed, in this case, the light controller is only 120 volts. So keep that in mind, only 120. So we're going to go from the control panel. We're going to feed 120 volts into our controller. The controller does require a neutral wire. So we're going to get, obviously, the black line is the 120, and in this case, the blue is the neutral or the white. We're going to feed the controller. We also require always a grounding for the controller. So, and then we're going to come out of the controller with our high voltage again, and we're going to feed the transformer. Transformer in this case obviously needs to be 120 volts with a neutral wire. And then from the transformer, we come out with the 14-volt line, and that low voltage 14 volt is how we're going to feed our ColorLogic lights. So keep in mind that the controller is always high voltage, and from there we feed the transformer in order to get the low voltage into the lights. As a safety recommendation and as a better installation, also keep in mind that many times in our markets we are using these lights, these junction boxes, which they are flat and they fit right next to the pool. They are not necessarily the best junction boxes that we should be using. It is important to keep that in mind, because this junction box doesn't give us the safety that we need. It doesn't give us the distances that we need. in order to do a proper installation and a safe installation. And many times with these junction boxes, unfortunately, the customer doesn't fix them until the junction box is basically flooded with water, because the lid breaks, and by the time that we do any kind of preventive maintenance on this, it's too late, because now there is moisture in the wiring, and obviously we know that water and electricity don't mix. So there is more moisture in the water, there is moisture in the wiring, and then that obviously can burn our lights. We recommend using this type of junction box, and I will show you how this junction box installs. If on some projects you already have this flat junction box installed, then that's fine. If you're going to use our lights, they come with wiring long enough to where you don't have to cut the wires in order to do any type of splicing in the box. Let's say that your pool is here, you come in with your new light, with the new wire, you feed it through the junction box, and don't cut it, don't do anything to the wiring, just fish it through and then go back out directly to your equipment room or to your transformer. This way is going to guarantee that we are not splicing the wire in the junction box, and that avoids the issues of water getting in through the electrical cord. And here is some of the recommendations on how we normally, how we should be doing the electrical connections on the lights. In this case, we are showing you how to install a ColorLogic 320. Remember, the ColorLogic 320 goes inside an 1.5-inch pipe. So here we can see minimum 4 inches below the water level. We have that 1.5-inch pipe, and then that 1.5 inch is reduced to 1-inch conduit, and that inch conduit is going to go back into our junction box. Remember that we need a minimum of 48 inches between any type of electrical connection and the perimeter of our pool. So with that other type of junction box, the white one that goes on the deck, normally that will be right here. But remember, we don't want to do that because that doesn't meet any kind of safety code. And the safety code says that you have to be 48 inches or more away from the perimeter of the pool. So this is why we're coming here with this conduit further away. And at the same time, any type of electrical connection is going to be above the water level, at least 8 inches. So we can see here, it will be our electrical connections. So it is farther away, and it is also higher than we will do with a standard junction box. Here we can see a similar installation. In this case, we're doing on a spa. Here we can see the spa bench, and our lighting is going to be below the bench. Same recommendations, minimum 48 inches away from the water and 8 inches above the water level. And here we can see a couple of installations that show us how we can play around in order to get a safe installation, how we can play around. In this case, we have our light switch. We have a 300-watt transformer, and that 300-watt transformer is going to be feeding with 14 volts, as we can see here. It's going to be feeding a junction box, and that junction box is going to be feeding 2 lights. Here we can see light A and light B. The maximum length that we can go from the transformer to the lights by using the 14-volt output on the transformer, we can see here that it's 145 feet or 44 meters. Why? Because coming out of the transformer, we are going to get 14 volts. But the longer this wire is, we can see how our voltage is going to drop. In this case, the voltage is coming out of 14 volts, but by the time it gets to the lights, we are actually right at 12.2. Because remember, with low voltage, the longer the wire, the more resistance. So that's why we always recommend coming out of 14 volts in order to avoid or order to mitigate that voltage drop. And here we can see the junction box, how it is going to be installed above the ground level. So if there is any kind of flooding or something like that, it is not going to get into our junction box because it is totally sealed. And at the same time, that junction box is also meant to be installed outdoors. So it can be installed on a planter, some sort of landscape around the pool, and that's fine. It can rain on it, and even if there's some flooding because of a lot of rain, then the connections are safe because it is elevated away from the ground level. Here is another example of installation. In this case, we're going from our switch. Remember, this can be a standard light switch, or it can be a ColorLogic light controller. From the switch to the transformer, and then from the transformer, we're coming out directly to the lights. In this case, we are not using a junction box, but coming out of transformer, we can see again the 145 feet max in order to get at least 12.2 volts at the light. Here is another example on how we can also play with the placement of the transformer. We're going from the switch to the transformer. In this case, we are doing 80 feet of cable, and this is going to be all high voltage, 120 volts. So from the switch to the transformer, and then from the transformer to the lights, we can see that the distance here is dropped. It is only 70 feet between the transformer and the lights. And we can see that obviously by shortening that cable, the voltage that we get at the lights is now higher, is 13.2. That's fine. Our lights don't have an issue working with anywhere between 12 to 14 volts. So as long as we are getting that voltage right to the light, anywhere between 12 to 14, our lights are going to be working perfectly fine. So consider this installation also as an option. Most of the transformers, at least the ones that we sell, they are meant to be installed outdoors as well. So again, they can be installed at a planter or something like that. Most of the time, the closer we can get the transformer to the installation of the lights, the better we are, because then that is going to help us avoid any kind of voltage drop. Now we see here a little bit more information about the installation of the ColorLogic 320 lights. Remember, this one fits inside 1.5-inch pipe, and I will show you how this light, in order for it to fit inside 1.5 inch, it doesn't require any type of niche, or it doesn't require any type of wall adapter. Let's say that our pipe goes here. Once we turn this bezel on the lights, by turning that, we can see this O-ring or this gasket is actually going to expand. When that expands, it is going to seal directly inside 1.5-inch schedule 40 pipe, and that way it prevents our light obviously from coming out of the pipe. It does come with a tool in order to do that. So again, we fit the light in 1.5 inch. We place this tool in order to hold the lens of the light, and then with this wheel that we place over the tool, we thread in our bezel. And let me go back in order to show you this again. Remember, that center tool is going to come in here to hold the lens, and then with this wheel, we are going to place that here and turn this bezel. So the good thing with this installation method is that the light itself doesn't move. Remember, all we are moving is this bezel in order for the gasket to expand. So by the light itself not moving, our cord is not getting tangled inside the pipe. Because many times what happens with competitor models is that the entire light has to thread into an adapter. And once you start threading in this light, the cord is going to get tangled up and it is going to get damaged. With our installation method, the light itself never moves, because remember, we are holding the light and just turning the bezel. And here we can see that all of our ColorLogic 320 lights that come with a plaster cap. It's important to obviously protect the light when we are doing any type of finish work in the pool. So always use this plaster cap in order to protect our lens. And then once we are done, obviously you can just take it off and expose our light. Here we can see installations and on 1.5-inch piping. Remember, 1.5-inch we do not require any 1.5-inch we do not require any type of adapter. This is the same installation that I already showed you. Here we have the pipe, the light goes in, and remember the gasket expands as you turn in these the faceplate, and this is how the light looks. You don't see any of the pipe. Obviously, the pipe is going to be embedded into your pool shell, so you don't see that. All you see is just this bezel and the light itself. So it is a very clean installation. It looks very nice because you don't see all of the plastic around it. So, and also keep in mind that our lights, they come with two colors on the frame. You have white and you also have gray. So you or the customer, the homeowner, can select whatever color they prefer on their pool. Now, if we have 2-inch pipe, for whatever reason the builder left 2-inch pipe on the pool, then we can also install our lights. All we're going to do, remember, this will be 2-inch schedule 40 or 1.5-inch schedule 40. If the builder left 2-inch schedule 40, now we are going to use a wall adapter that is 1.5-inch slip on the inside and 2-inch slip on the outside. What we are going to do is cut a piece of 1.5-inch pipe that we are going to glue into the adapter, and then this adapter now is going to glue inside the 2-inch pipe. What this allows us to do by having that piece of 1.5-inch pipe on the inside is that now our gasket and our installation method is going to work, because remember, it's going to be the same way as we have done it before in 1.5 inch. But now with this faceplate, with this wall adapter, now we're able to glue this inside the 2-inch pipe, and our light can be secured into a 2-inch pipe. So for 2-inch, we do require the faceplate. For 1.5-inch, we do not. And then we can see here how the installation looks. Obviously, in this case, we use a different color on the frame just to show you the difference between the wall adapter and the light. But if you have it in white, as we have it here on this picture, then it is not noticeable, the frame and the light and the light itself. Now we go into ColorLogic 80 installation. Remember, if you have any questions during the presentation, write it down on the question section of this platform, and we're going to review all of the questions before we finish. So ColorLogic 80 installation, remember that this is the light that is 1/2 inch diameter. Since it is so small, the installation is a little bit different than what I have shown you before. They can be installed both underwater, or they can be installed as a landscape light, so it can be outside of the water as well. This light, the ColorLogic 80, is going to need a driver box. And that driver box is needed because the lights are so small that we were not able to fit normally all of the board and all of the programming that you fit inside a standard light. So the driver box is going to do all of that work for us. Remember, these lights are about, it's 1/2 inch diameter, but in length, in the depth of it, it's about a little bit less than 3 inches. So it is extremely small. That's why it is so good in order to do some of the accent illumination around the pool. It can be used on landscape. It can be used on water features, as we saw earlier. It can be used on the steps. So it is ideal in order to create some accents around the pool and illuminate it better. So we go from the lights. Each of the lights has a 50-foot cord. So from the lights, we go into our driver. From the driver, we go into our transformer. Remember, this driver has to be fed with low voltage, with 14 volts. So always from the driver to the transformer. And then from the transformer, it can be to our automation system, or it can also be to our ColorLogic controller. Or if the customer doesn't want any of those, it can just be to a standard light switch on the wall in order to switch from the different colors. So here we see it another way. We feed from the high voltage line to the transformer. So this is obviously high voltage again. From the transformer, we are going to go low voltage, 14 volts once again, into our driver. And from the driver, we come out once again with 14 volts into the lights. Remember that each driver is able to support up to 5 lights. So keep that in mind. If when you are sizing a project, if you're going over 5 lights, you can actually use more than one driver. Remember, this driver is only going to feed the ColorLogic 80 lights. It is not needed for the ColorLogic pool lights, it is not needed for the spa, and it is not needed for the 1.5-inch lights. It is only going to be for the ColorLogic 80. Remember, 1/2 inch, only 3 inches in depth. So here we can see that each of these drivers are going to use up to 23 watts. So many times customers ask me, okay, how many lights can I put on a transformer? Well, that is going to depend obviously on the type of light that we use. Remember that we saw on some of our pool lights, it can use anywhere between 45 to 70 watts each. But on these lights, they are so small that a fully loaded driver only uses 23 watts. And that fully loaded driver you are able to do 65 lights of that ColorLogic 80 on a 300 watt transformer. So again, on 300 watts, you can do up to 65 lights. But remember, that is only of the ColorLogic 80. But if we're doing a project where we want to mix and match, we can do a pool light, for example, the big one that uses, let's say, about 70 watts. And then we want to do a ColorLogic 320, which uses 23 watts. So right there, let's say that we have about 90 watts already used. And then we go into the ColorLogic 80s, we can easily do another 5 lights on a transformer, and we are going to have plenty of capacity. Here we see the electrical installation on the ColorLogic 80 driver. On the top is our input. Remember that our input is low voltage, 14 volts. That is going to be feeding our controller. And then we have a couple of access points on the bottom of the controller. This is the bottom of the controller that we see here. And then we're going to output into our ColorLogic 80. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 outputs, because remember that we can feed up to 5 lights with one of these drivers. Now, how does it look on the inside? Well, it looks just like this. It is a board, as we can see here, and we have 5 connections here, because remember, each of these connections is going to feed one of our lights. So we come in with our power, which is this picture at the top here. We come in with our low voltage, 14 volt feeding the board, and then we come out with these 5 plugs in order to feed each of the lights. We can see here on the picture how the plugs are going to come in and plug directly into the board this way here. And then I want to show you how the plug looks, because it is color coded. These lights, instead of having the standard 2 wires, the ColorLogic 80 has a 5-wire cable. But each of those 5 wires is color coded. So when we are assembling our plug in order to connect into our board here, they are color coded. So it makes it very easy. Obviously, we have the yellow, red, white, black, and green, and each of those is going to go to the same color on the plug. So it makes it a lot easier to just wire it and then come in and plug it directly into the board. So installation is very simple. It is nothing complicated around it. We do recommend that when you are doing the wiring for the lights, if you can use an electrical conduit, that is going to help protect the wire. But if not, the wire for the ColorLogic 80 lights, it can be direct burial. So it can be directly on the ground, especially if you're doing landscape. Many times we don't use conduits because we want to have the option to move the light from one section to the other. So this cord for the ColorLogic 80, it can be direct burial. And now here we take a look at the installation options on how we would install this driver. The driver installation recommendations is the same as we saw for the transformer earlier, or as the same as what we saw for the controller for junction boxes, I'm sorry. So the driver is designed to be installed outside. It can rain on it. It can get the sun. That is not an issue. We are going to install it the same way. It is going to be elevated, so it is not going to be directly on the ground. So we elevate it about 8 inches, and we can also use a rebar that goes here on the side in order to support the driver. In this case, we see how we are coming in from the transformer. We're going to feed our driver, and then we can see on the back end here the wires for each of the ColorLogic 80 lights. In this case, it is being used as a landscape light. So we can see installation is very easy. And then if we have a project that is going to require more than 10 ColorLogic 80 lights, the installation is very simple. We can just daisy chain all of them. So we're going from the light switch, in this case, from the breaker box to the light switch, from the light switch to the transformer. Remember, low voltage coming out. We are going to feed one driver. That one driver is going to get 5 lights out of it. And then from that same driver, we are just going to daisy chain and come back out once again and feed another driver. Again, that driver has another 5 lights coming out of it, and the sequence can keep going as many control drivers as you need in order to get all of your lights powered. And again, if we are going to be using the ColorLogic 80 in the pool, same recommendations apply. Minimum a 48-inch away from the water's edge. Remember, this is half an inch conduit because that light goes inside half an inch pipe. I'm sorry. So half an inch pipe, half an inch conduit goes back into our driver, and the driver needs to be minimum 48 inches away from the water's edge, and minimum 8 inches on top of the water line. And then here we see how our ColorLogic 80 light fits inside half an inch pipe. So this light doesn't have a bezel that turns like we saw with the ColorLogic 320, but it does has an oversized O-ring. That oversized O-ring, what it does is that once we insert it into half an inch Schedule 40 pipe, it is going to fit in very tight. It's going to fit in very snug. So make sure that you get the O-ring a little bit wet when you're putting it in order for it not to kink and not to get pressed against the edges. So we just wet the O-ring, push in the light, and this is how the light is going to be seated into the half an inch pipe. Installation is very easy. Just push it in, and that's it. We are done. Some troubleshooting steps in order to keep in mind. If our lights are blinking in white or don't turn on, obviously check all of your wiring connections, check the voltage coming out of your transformer, and also check the length of the wire. Remember how we said that when we are coming out of the transformer with low voltage, the longer the wire is, we're going to get a voltage drop. So make sure that if you're using a transformer with multiple outputs, that you're using the 14-volt output coming out of the transformer. Then if the lights don't turn on, obviously check your power supply. Most probably it's a power supply issue, or check your connections to make sure that you don't have a loose wire. Again, if your lighters don't turn on and they are connected to automation, they check your automation system, make sure that they are programmed correctly. And then if your ColorLogic 80, if the lights are not working, just double check because there is an LED on the board, and that LED on the board is going to tell us if the light is working or not, actually by the amount of blinks. So keep that in mind. And obviously check the power supply coming into your ColorLogic 80 driver in order to make sure that you're getting the correct voltage. Now that we are done with our lighting, we're going to take a look into our water features. Water features is the second step of this presentation. And just keep in mind that we have different water feature options, including our bubbler. Bubbler is this unit that we see here, and it creates this volcano effect in the pool. So it is a nice way to decorate a pool. Normally a bubbler is installed in no more than 12 inches of water. So it is normally installed in the shallow end of the pool, and it creates this volcano effect. And the good thing with this bubbler is that it uses the same light that we already saw earlier, the ColorLogic 320 as a light source. So we are going to have two outputs into these bubblers. This is how the bubbler looks on the installation. It is installed similar to how you install a main drain. You have two ports. One is going to be for the water. The other one is going to be for your light. So with the two ports, it makes it a lot easier to put both the water and the light. And at the same time, those two ports are interchangeable. We can see here how in one port we are going to have our water jet, on the other one we're going to have the light, and then it has a lens that fits flat into the bottom of your pool. So remember, since this is installed on the shallow end, people are going to step on it, and that's fine. It is designed to be stepped on because it fits flat into the bottom of the pool, and at the same time the lens is plastic, so there's no problem with it breaking. And then keep in mind that there's two options when it comes to the water jet. We have a 3/4 size that we can see here on the picture, and then we also have a 1/2 inch size. Those come standard with the bubbler, so you can select at the time that you're doing your installation what kind of jet you want. Obviously, the 1/2 inch is going to give you more of a water shooting up effect than the 3/4. But you can easily change that once it is installed already. Then we also have the laminar. The ColorLogic laminar, again, uses the same ColorLogic and CrystaLogic light that we already saw. The good thing with the laminar is it gives you this lighted water stream. There is a very nice effect on the pool. Good thing with our laminars, it comes with internal flow adjustment, so you don't require a outside valve. Here we can see some of the components on the laminar. But what I want to show you the most is this section here that shows you how we use our ColorLogic 320 lights. We just remove the bezel totally, take it out, and then this ColorLogic 320 lights is going to thread in inside our laminar jet. The installation is very easy, but just keep in mind that if you're going to sell a laminar, to also buy the ColorLogic 320 light, because you can buy the light separate. That way you can choose, okay, how long do I want the cord to be? Do I want to be 30 feet, 50, 100, or even 150? And then this laminar also has a ratchet effect, and the ratchet effect you can select, okay, how high do I want the water to shoot and how far do I want the water to shoot as well. And we can see here how we can play and position the jets, the water stream, however we want. The maximum depth required to install this laminar is 22 inches. So remember, we have to dig all the way down to 22 inches. The laminar can be installed on the deck, or it can actually be installed further away on the planters, for example. And then this laminar is also going to require a gravel pit in order for drainage. Remember, as it rains, water can get in here, and we want the water to be able to drain out safely in order not to clog up our laminar on the inside. Here we can see how the installation looks. This is a cutaway that is going to show you the inside. So we have our water line fitting in. This is a heavy duty hose that goes into this. And at the same time, our lighting is going to be inside here, remember, and it is going to be shooting this way. Something to keep in mind is that we need, for those of you that participated in our filter presentation, we need very clean water for the laminar to do the stream effect. So we recommend minimum a cartridge filter or a DE filter, but no sand filter for the laminars, because remember, sand, the micron filtration level is about 40 microns, and that is actually going to clog up our laminar, because our laminar requires very clean water in order for it to be able to do that shooting effect or that arc of water without the water breaking up. So in this case, we're showing an installation with 3 laminars, and we have a dedicated pump and a dedicated filter. Remember, the filter needs to be cartridge filter in order for it to work properly as a standalone. And here we can see that if we have all of these laminars appropriately balanced on our line, then all of them are going to get exactly the same amount of flow. So it makes it very easy. And remember that we also have an internal valve on each of the laminars where we can adjust the flow. Then we can also have a shared equipment. So in this case, we have our pump, our filter, our heater, and all of this pool is being powered with the same pump and filter. But then we have a valve that is going to be feeding our laminar. It is a three-way valve. That way we can control the flow that goes into the laminar, and the laminar is always going to be installed before a cell for salt chlorinator, and it is also going to be installed before any type of erosion feeder, because we don't want that highly chlorinated water to go into our laminar. So keep that in mind. If it is only one or two laminars, we might be able to power them with the standard filtration pump that we already have. Remember that we will need a cartridge filter in that case, no sand, because sand doesn't give us the fine filtration that we require for the laminar. And then another options that we have when it comes to water features is our deck jets. That deck jet is a simple system of just getting a water stream. The deck jet is not illuminated. It's not like the laminar that we just saw. But this deck jet is going to give us an easy way to decorate and to add some sparkling into the pool and into the water and make the pool look a little bit nicer. So with our deck jets, they come in a pack of 4. In this case, we can see here on the picture 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the back side. And they are easy to install. Installation is very similar to the laminar that we saw earlier, but this can be installed with sand filters, no problem, because the water flow, as we can see here, it is not as fine as the laminar, which requires a perfect water stream in order for it to be illuminated. The deck jet doesn't require illumination and doesn't have illumination. And then lastly, when it comes to water features, we have our Shear 500 waterfalls. These waterfalls, we have multiple sizes available, anywhere between a foot to 5 feet long. And the good thing with this waterfall compared to the competitors is that the lip is actually a clear acrylic. So that is a good feature because, for example, this installation, we see it on the back side here. We have this stone wall, and then the lip of the waterfall actually blends in with the colors surrounding it. So instead of using a standard waterfall where you see that white lip all the way around, with this one you don't see that white lip because the acrylic, clear acrylic accommodates to and it matches the colors of the surrounding stone. And that has been the presentation for lighting and water features. Just as a recap, remember that we have, when it comes to lighting, sizes for pool and spa, and we can also install in 1/2 inch or 1.5 inch or 2-inch plumbing, and also 1/2 inch with the ColorLogic 80. Remember that it is compatible with all niches, so that's why we call it universal ColorLogic. Doesn't require any grounding, doesn't require any bonding. It is a safer light because everything that is in contact with the water is actually plastic, so it creates a safety as well, thanks to that. Brighter colors, and then we have 10 solid colors and 7 color shows. And when we install this with our OmniDirect mode, remember that is the automation, then instead of having 10 fixed colors, we can actually get 20 fixed colors. So it makes it to where the customer has even more options as to what color they want to choose. If you have any questions, please write it under the question section. And if not, here is our contact information if you need any help in the future. My name is Roberto Sablon, Export Sales Manager for Latin America and the Caribbean. Then we also have our technical manager, which is Manny Ixlawak. Manny is able to help us with all of the technical issues that we might have, and any questions that you have, feel free to contact with him as well. And then we have a sales manager for South America, Rafael Acosta. We can see his contact information there. Let me see if we have any questions on the question section. No questions yet, but I also want to remind you once again of our webinars. Remember, the webinars Last week we had variable speed, filtration, and gas heater. Yesterday we had heat pumps. Today, you obviously just saw lighting and water features. And make sure that you sign up for tomorrow's webinar on sanitization, which includes salt chlorine generators, UV, and ozone. And then next week, remember that we're going to be looking at automation and automatic pool cleaners. Remember that the webinars are always on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And since we don't have any questions, I just want to thank you for joining us this morning and appreciate you being willing to learn about our products. Have a great day, and we hope to see you tomorrow on the webinars. Thank you.